All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wake Up Call. My name's Kirby. I'm dialing in from Tennessee, and thanks for dialing in the Wake Up Call. We do this every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 8:15 Central Time, a 15-minute call to get your day started. So thanks for dialing in. And with that, my primary job here is just to welcome the guest speaker, who happens to be my wife, of coming up on 41 years. And if you didn't know, we're going through the book, The Little Things Matter. As I mentioned a second ago, if you don't have a copy of that book, you can buy it online, or you can do a free download. Just go to Little Things Matter, free download, put that in your Google search, and it'll pop up a PDF, and you can download and follow along with us. I think we're on chapter 39 today, and with that, I'll introduce my wife, Miss Cindy Wright, to lead the call.
All right. Thank you, Kirby. And welcome, everyone, to the Wake Up Call. We're on Chapter 39. There are two sides to every story. So imagine that. Okay, let's get started. He says, beginning in the days of World War II and for decades after, famed radio broadcaster Paul Harvey shared the rest of the story with millions of Americans. After presenting news stories, he surprised listeners each time with a true twist at the very end and concluded with his signature sign-off. And now you know the rest of the story. Although Paul Harvey died in 2009, I can't help but think of his influence on the idea that there are always two sides to every story, and that it's to our benefit to make sure we know and understand both sides before making a judgment or rendering an opinion. You may not agree with what's being said, but it's wise to know all the facts before you speak or act. Whether it's your best friend complaining about his or her spouse, a coworker annoyed with another employee, or a newspaper columnist writing a political story, bear in mind that there's always more than one perspective to a story. Not everyone sees, experiences, and recalls things in the same way. He said, I think most people can relate to the uh-oh feeling that comes right after learning we've made a fool of ourselves for having argued a point only to find out that we didn't have all the facts and made an error in judgment. This is sometimes followed by a tactful retreat, or as they say, eating of our words. We all may do it on occasion, but repeated rushes to judgment could damage our reputation and jeopardize our relationship. His challenge today, he said, it's natural to be influenced when we hear or read something, especially if it's well presented. But you may not have the whole story. It's not necessary to weigh in on every issue. When you reserve your strongly held beliefs for the things that really matter, your opinions will carry more weight and your point of view will command greater respect. From this point forward, make sure you have all the data on which to base your judgments. When addressing a conflict or challenge, be sure to reserve your opinion until you have heard both sides of the story. And this is just a really good chapter, I think, because, it's like human nature to, when someone's telling you something, to, just to quickly think that that person is, right, and you're listening to them and you're like, oh my gosh, really? I can't believe that. And when the reality is, we really should be saying, well, what's the other person's side of the story and what's really true here? Especially, but it's hard to say that to someone. Someone's saying something to you and you're like, well, what's the other side of the story? What if I asked, so-and-so what their side of the story is, how would they match? And so I just think, but you don't ever want to hear that as the person telling the story. But anyway, I'll give it to you for your thoughts, Kirby.
All right. I did not realize that Paul Harvey died in 2009. I miss that guy. I miss hearing those little radio things that he used to do, and ended it with, and now you know the rest of the story today. That was pretty cool. So, yes, on the two sides of the story, I heard something the other day that there's actually three sides of the story: your side, my side, and the truth. And I think that's kind of true because the truth seems to lie somewhere in the middle. And a lot of times the stories get very polarized, and nobody's really lying. They just interpret the events differently. And I've been kind of studying the news over the past few years, and a great way to look at this is if pick any story that's in the news today and go to CNN and watch how they report it, and then go to Fox and watch how they report it, and you'll see two completely different stories, the exact same story, but two different renditions of that same story, and probably both of them are pretty close to true. So it's interesting, and I think the most important thing for me about this kind of thing, knowing that there are at least two sides of the story, just making sure that we've got all the facts. Many times we jump to conclusions based on little pieces of information, and we believe that those are true, and they may not even be true, but we need to make sure that we get all of the information, all of the facts. I get on to Cindy sometimes because she'll hear something, and I'll hear her being told something, and then she'll tell me, and I'll go, wait a second, that's not exactly what they just said. There's an interpretation, and usually as the story is told, there's always an interpretation. Somebody's going to hear something and repeat it slightly different. And if you play the telephone game and that thing keeps going, then it can be completely different. So it gets from one side to the other, it's a completely different story, and it's hard to figure out where the real truth is. So I think it's kind of a word of caution that we need to be careful when we hear stories, that we don't fall into just believing carte blanche what the person is telling us, that there may be some other facts that we need to find out about to get the whole story. So with that, Cindy, great job this morning. I'll let you close out the call.
Well, I think that it's just easy when you're sitting there talking with someone to, of course, believe their story. And, you know, I'm just one of those that I want to believe someone is telling me the truth. I mean, I don't ever like to think someone is lying to me. And when I find out that there is another side of the story and that someone has either exaggerated something or flat out lied about it, then it's just so disappointing. And so I just lose so much respect for that person, and their integrity is definitely in question. Once someone really exaggerates something and you find out that it was just way exaggerated, and so, or just the total opposite, or, you know, even maybe just mildly exaggerated, it's like, just tell the truth. And, you know, that's just the whole thing. It's like you never have to worry about anything if you're just telling the truth. You don't have to worry about who you told, what you said, who you talked to. Just tell the truth. And it's never in question after that. He says at the very end, every mountain has two sides. You don't know what is on the other side until you have crossed over the summit and witness the view yourself. And that is just so true. So with that, Kirby, I'll give it to you to close out. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Forgot to push the mute button. Yeah, I think for me it's just making sure that I've got all the facts. So before and he used the word judgment, I guess that is what we do. We're forming a judgment based on the information that we have. So if we don't have all of the information, we just have part of the information, we just have one person's rendition of the facts, the truth might be somewhere a little bit different than what we're hearing. So that's kind of my word of caution, is what I got out of that today, is to just make sure that we're hearing the whole story. So with that, I'm going to press some magic buttons here so we can say goodbye.